If you're a
Yes.
talented artist out there and you're looking for work, don't hesitate. You can reach out to me also.
You're looking for an impressionist right here.
Dude,
Hello.
you can if you do
Go
we do.
to my wife, wash it. I want it here.
There you go. We that's absolutely needed.
Uziel, you have good questions.
That's a good
I
question.
mean, look at you. You're making Nimistick Verbringens over the internet.
You are listening with the Megillas podcast with Uziel Naparstek, where we go deep with people from our childhood. All right, we are here with the legendary CJ Kramer, which you could say he's like the Hollywood producer of the From community, you could say. He has done things like Megillas Lester, and he's done multiple music videos, including the most recent Shabbos Kodesh with Avram Fried. He has done the Mashal Man and many projects for Ura and Shmorg and tons of things that I'm actually a fan of that I grew up with. Thank you very much and welcome, CJ Kramer. How are you?
It's great to be here, Uziel. Thank you for having me. And you
Yes.
can call me Chanaya if you can pronounce it. Just the CJ's.
Chanaya, perfect.
For anybody who has a hard time with the sound.
What's Jay, by the way?
Jay is Yirmiyahu. I think like
Yirmiyahu. Wow.
25 years ago or so when I got started, I felt like that was like a real concern. You got to have a Gaisha sounding names. This way people should be able to pronounce it. I think as time goes on, that matters less and less.
Yeah. But as I seen like behind the scenes, you definitely have a lot of like top notch, even not necessarily from or not even Jewish like employees. So do they probably mix up your name a lot of times too?
Yep, they do. Yeah, they all, they struggle with it. They most of them do call me CJ back from the time when I first introduced myself as CJ. And then over time, the clients keep calling me Chanaya because I'm working for From people pretty much. So.
Yeah. So before we get to a lot of things that and we do have somewhat time, but before that we have to start. What's your background like?
My background. Well, let's see how far back you want to go. I originally were out of towners. My family's originally from St. Louis, and we moved around a bunch when we were kids. I lived in St. Louis. I lived in Portland, Brookline, and grew up most of my years in Yonkers, New York. Doesn't even count as New York to call it Yonkers. But then I went to Yeshiva in '85 and to Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, and I stayed in Baltimore since. So, I'm more Baltimore than anything else at this point.
Right. Baltimore is the classic, you know? Like some people like like don't really like realize that like at one time like Baltimore was like the new place that you would call like, oh, Lakewood's the new place or Muncie's the new place, or you know what I'm saying? Like Baltimore was like one of those first places.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's been around. It's last year they did their 91st dinner. There's not that many American yeshivas that can talk all day
Wow.
long. So yeah, so I was in Ner Yisrael from high school straight through 6 years of Kollel. Did the whole system there. A little stint in the mirror in the middle, but otherwise it was pretty much that.
Could you track your how you do things nowadays with your studio and Koram back to your childhood, or was that much more later in your life?
I could. In my bar mitzvah at 19 is 1984. If you want to do the calculation of how old I am, in 1984, my father bought covered the bar mitzvah a VHS VCR with a camera. Now you have to just remember a camera during that time was a large,
Yep.
big thing which had a hard cable that went to the VCR that you slung over your shoulder. So you hold the
Yep.
camera with a physical cable that would go to the VCR, and the VHS tape would capture what the camera was getting. And you had to do a manual white balance on something that was white first. This way, it would know what was haste white, on the. And I spent most of a summer with my siblings just making little movies, and that's what we were into. I was a little Steven Spielberg trying to make videos. So I won't pretend like that was trying to lay the groundwork for a career, but it was true that, definitely enjoyed that sort of thing. And that kind of feeling never went away. And when I got married, I worked in camp, and I was doing production there also for camp. This was Camp Romamu. Some of your audience may recognize Shluffy Bokervecker. I don't know. That was the character that we had. That we had produced there. And I was in Köln, and everybody in Köln needs to make a buck.
Right.
So, so at that time, I enjoyed potchking on the computer. So I was developing presentations, and I get paid a little bit of money here and there to do presentations. And I actually bit off more than I could chew, which is kind of how a lot of people learn how to do things. And I took on a client and took money. It was actually Terra Masera, and they wanted me to make an interactive CD-ROM. I actually offered to do that, where you click on things and you get to watch a clip or you see a PDF. And we're talking
Right.
about 1999 at this point. So that was cool. Interactive CD-ROMs were cool back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So I made a company, Colrom, the voice of the CD-ROM. That's the Pshatim,
Yeah.
Colrom. And videos were not really a thing to put on discs yet. The compression wasn't good enough. You could do it a
Yeah.
little bit, but you had to install players that would be installed on the discs. So now that's 25 years ago, 26 years ago, Kimat. And we graduated from CD-ROMs, which went away, into video production, filmmaking, animation, v'chulu, v'chulu.
When you were younger and making like those little movies, did you get like really sophisticated? Like I remember when I was young, I started out with like just filming myself, but then I moved on to like to figuring out doing stop motion with Legos and then doing like special effects, but really was just like copy and paste like paint, like you would draw a
Yeah, I
line and
mean, to be
stuff.
fair, it was, we were kids, so
Right,
we were
exactly.
doing the best we could. I was the Reich of the children over here with me being a 13-year-old. So we did what we, I guess so, little miniature stuff that we were filming. Yeah, pretty much it was just us being ridiculous, like
Yeah.
being kids all summer and hanging around in our pajamas making videos.
Exactly. But it's just like funny to like look back and like sometimes when you do projects and you kind of like get like those little snippets of like, oh wow, I remember like realizing that that's a possibility as a kid. Meaning like when you're looking at tutorials or when you're like figuring out, okay, how do we do this shot or how do we do this? And they said, oh, if you do simply this and that, and you go like, oh, I kind of remember like me doing that as a kid a little bit. And I don't even realize how like useful that was or something, but I remember that happening a lot.
Yeah, I mean, over time, the industry became so much more sophisticated, and before long, once I started actually bringing on people who actually knew what they were doing,
Right.
hiring a team of true professionals who are properly trained. So I was able to learn more. Me Talmida Yeser Mikulam. I was able to learn from my own staff more than anything else.
Right. That's true. It's very true. Um, so what was like your first projects or so? Like at what point did you like go on from like simply helping others do presentations or work on CD-ROMs and stuff like that to like actually doing your own productions and your own projects that were really out there?
Well, most of the work that I've done in my career to date has been client work. People ask for
Yeah.
projects. I don't get to do that many passion projects, just making a film, making a,
But I'm
so
I'm saying like compared to like oh can you do this or this thing or can you work on a presentation but you actually like did like full on videos for let's say like music videos
mm,
or when you did for Schmorg or I'm saying like when you actually like went on and did these things.
I would say, yeah, not sure how far back to go because remember there was when we were doing interactive CD-ROMs, that's less of people wouldn't even think about that in the terms of any kind of production because
Yeah.
it's not linear. The whole idea is it's interactive. So I click and I watch something. In 2001, when I was still spending time at Camp Romamu, and I would make their interactive CD-ROMs. So what that meant was, you'd have photo galleries and you'd do different little video clips and you'd compress them and put them on the discs. So we would be proactive because nobody was telling us what to make. So let's make a virtual tour of the campgrounds. And you click on a camp on a map, and it would show a picture of that a video of something taking place on that part of the campgrounds. And likewise, lots of gimmicky stuff like that. I think, when Ura gave us the opportunity to do some of the Mashal Man, which I'm trying to remember what year that was, probably like 2007, 2008 was probably the first Mashal Man where we did.
Yeah, around then. Around then.
It wasn't our first production, of course. We had been making videos but it was, I mean, it was kicking it up a notch with a bigger cast and full
Yeah.
musical numbers. And Those were great projects, by the way. Mashal Man.
Oh, I
Your
grew up with
audience
them.
who
I
hasn't
remember
seen
like,
Mashal Man, go out and I don't know. They're probably available on YouTube by now or something like. I don't know,
yeah,
but
they're available on YouTube. Yeah, but I remember like it when at what point Ura used to give out DVDs if you gave a certain amount, like very low, like $20 or something, and then it went on to like 100. But like I remember getting them and watching the Marshall Man the first time. It was like so much happening, and it
there's a
was
lot of
so lit
content.
up.
The Mashal Man was like an hour, and we did three of them. It's like three
Yeah.
hours worth of good stuff, of lots of original songs and lots of parodies,
Oh
and they were
yeah.
all professional actors. So the actors were, and we did it all green screen. I remember the first year we did it at Bravo Studios in Manhattan. Cost a velt of money to work out there. Now already, of course, I've got my whole green screen studio. I can show my. I'm sitting here at my art scroll studio right now. I got a whole
Oh
big
wow.
screen studio. I can do this kind of work here in house. I don't need to spend a lot of money and time on other people's studios. But that was that kind of production. It wasn't too long afterwards where we did the Mishkan for Art Scroll. That was like
Oh nice.
2009. That was a big project. That was arguably the biggest project I had done to date
Really?
because
Why is that?
well, it was cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of the research. I mean, they took all the kalim of the Mishkan and modeled in 3D, and we had to manipulate it. It was Rabbi Meir Zlotowitz, Zechrona Livracha, was ahead of his time, and he envisioned a whole interactive thing for Mechanchem and for people to learn about the Mishkan. The challenge, which is unfortunate, is by the time the year of development was done, the technology was such that it was almost outdated by the time it was released. And now
Yeah.
already, like it wouldn't even work. It was software, and software changed too fast. It was, dangerous business to get into. The software business doesn't stick around. So we'll see.
Exactly.
The research was done, and therefore, there's potentially it'll get a second life. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, earlier in the 2000s, I had a very substantial gig that was fun. We did the interactive CD-ROM for the delegates of the Republican National Convention that were
Oh
all in
wow.
public. It was 2004. Now I remember because the election was 2004. It was George W. Bush's reelection campaign, and I had relationships with some different major donors, and they got me that they introduced me to the right people. So New York City was hosting the delegates for the Republican National Convention, and they figure what can they give out to the delegates. This is before people. It's like you want a guide to New York, so they gave out
Right.
physical CD-ROMs that we filmed. Governor Pataki and Sean Hannity and Ed Koch, you know, different interesting New York personalities, and they all gave the virtual tour of New York to the delegates. It was a
Yeah.
silly kind of a project. I mean, it was one of my claims to fame that it got made fun of by Jon Stewart on the Daily Show. So my project that was something I'm a little bragging rights about that. But like a lot of things you think are going to be, this is going to change the course of my career. As soon as the election was over, the delegate whole group disbands. No, there's nothing left of it, and didn't turn into
Right.
anything. Just just some nice bragging rights.
I kind of want to pick your brain about the Mashal Man because it's something because um it's not your typical like Jewish from entertainment, especially at the time, because it was very much like it was kind of like taking the concept of the story tape at the time, like
Yeah.
because at that time, like that was like after the era kind of Shmuel Kunda and all these things, and you took that concept and put it on screen. That's what you basically did. Like you could literally take the Mushroom Man, listen to audio, and it's like, oh wow, it's mama's a story tape, but it just brought it
You're
to a
right
whole new
about what
light.
you're saying, Uziel. I'll tell you like the genesis of that. I was doing work for Ura for already a couple of years. I was working with them from the when they first were hatching the Schmorg. In fact, the first Schmorg we did, they they called me. This is in the very early 2000s because they had a auction idea, which is now like
Yeah,
everybody but their five-ish auction. But they had this auction idea, and they had a prize booklet, and they wanted a way to distribute the prize booklet. How can they do
yeah,
that? How can they put a PDF of these prizes on a CD-ROM? So my job was to take the PDF and to put it on a CD-ROM and create an interface. But the feeling was that it would be kind of like a boring thing. So let's create other content. So initially we created like a little schmutchika video about like, the prizes. And then eventually we did some music videos. And we later on we did the Atheist Convention in LA and Joe
yeah. I
DiMaggio.
remember you guys did that.
Yeah, sure. So we did
Oh
all the
wow,
we made a,
that was like one of the first like Fro music videos. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It was funny about the atheist convention in LA. I remember we like calling my travel agent and said, "Okay, I got to get on a plane, but I don't. I just want the cheapest tickets anywhere because we got to film on a plane. So just fly me anywhere with a guy." Whatever, different story. But anyhow, so I told the folks at URA I had this idea to do the Mashal Man. I wanted to call it Mashal Theater, and they changed it to the
yeah,
Mashal Man, like the Muffin Man. It was fine. So this idea was we know we can't take stories from Chazal or biblical stories because you just get into trouble if you start saying, okay, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu looked like. Ain't gonna work. This is what
yeah.
Rabbi Akiva looks like. It ain't gonna work. The one kind of story in Yahadus that is not going to get anybody into trouble is a mushal, because mashalim aren't real. I can make them look any way I want, and we can
Right,
put it. And we can hire goyim, and they don't have to be able to pronounce things right. It doesn't matter.
right.
And Rabbi Yahu Mintz had the idea of bringing Elchanan Schwartz, who who was the voice of Five-ish, and to play the Mushal Man, which he did. We got him all made up with a fake beard and got a makeup artist, and he played the Mushal Man himself. And we had this idea we would shoot it on green screen and then key out the backgrounds to create virtual worlds. And of course, the
Yeah,
difference between Mushal Man in the first year and Mushal Man in the third year was a vast difference in terms of the sophistication of the motion
yeah,
graphics,
yeah, yeah.
the artwork, and all that. But it all worked. It was a ton of fun.
But to tell you the truth, my favorite of the backgrounds was the first one because the first one was like it was kind of like telling the audience that like, hey, this is something fun. This is interactive. It's not necessarily are you made to take like, oh, like nip it like, ooh, what is this, or a little bit. It's like just having fun, watch and entertain, and it kind of had that vibe with it. So I kind of
That's
liked the
cool.
first
I
one.
like that. That's yeah. We had we got a choreography for that one. Remember the
Yeah.
schmaltz? Schmaltz. Yeah, it was some stuff.
Wow.
And we had all these dancers. It was great.
Um, who did the songs of that? Because those were great songs. Because now
Songs
there
were
were a bunch of cover
yeah.
parodies.
And all of the songs for all of the Mushal Mans were all written by my sister, Mrs. Malcolea Josephs, who is a professional
She's your
lyric.
sister.
My
Oh
sister, my secret
wow.
weapon. She also is she's a screenwriter also. She wrote the screenplays for the Mushal Man. She wrote the screenplays and wrote the songs. And and then we had the music was done. Um and but yeah, she's the one who came up with all that stuff. Yeah, excellent lyricist, really good. I remember, yeah, there was and also it like basically just I could go through each one of those songs and tell you the genesis of either as a song
Uh,
that we used to like when we were little kids, or I remember
Yeah.
the Schmaltz thing. We even did a duet between two of the characters, and it was actually an Ernie and Bert sing along from Sesame Street that we actually,
Oh wow.
yeah, kind of
But
fun.
what's funny about that is that like um sometimes when you watch things and you listen to songs that are parodies but you use it for productions, you kind of like tell right away that like, oh wow, that's an Alvin Freed song, oh that's a Morgan David song or something. But what's beautiful about the Bushel Man is that the songs were so interactive and the visuals and choreography was so good that I remember as a kid not even like thinking about it, like it didn't even come up to me like, oh that's a parody song, because it was just so well done in that way. And I think that was just a strength
I
in that.
wonder how many kids like come to Mare Kayan on Yom Kippur and like and the ba 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 da
Yeah,
da da
exactly.
da da, right? So like that's of course it's Mare Kayan, but if you first learned it from Mushal Man, you think that's the
Exactly.
song.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Ring the
yo, yeah.
bell. Yeah, ringing the bell. And we remember the actor from The Bell, that character, Andrew Davies, ended up playing Charvina on the
Yes, yeah.
uh Megillas Lester.
Yeah, and also Mashal Man one of the robbers end up being Lester.
Yes, Michael
Yeah.
Bahovsky. He played the
Yeah.
robber, and we reuse him. Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to casting. Casting is a lot of work to be able to
Oh yeah.
get all these actor auditions and bringing them out there and finding the actor that really works. When you find an actor that really works, it's like why reinvent it? Just call them back and say, "Hey, man, I got another part for you that I think you're good
Yeah,
for."
exactly.
And they're happy. They want to work, and so that
But
was.
obviously there's a chachma to like picking them. Like you're not just bringing a guy back because he's a good actor. There's actually
No,
there is a
it has to
chachma to
fit.
like
You got to fit the role.
right,
You got to fit
exactly.
the role. And also, actors also know each other. That's also another little secret. Like a guy like Michael Bahovsky, he helped us cast some of the other. He helped us find Adam Leventhal, who played Haman in Megillas Lester. The actress that played Vashti's voice. That was all from Michael because of his own actor network. You
Yeah.
know, I'll see, find a guy. Michael's Jewish, and so is Andrew Davies. It was nice to work with other Yid, and just to be able to bring
Do,
them in for Jewish projects.
doing multiple projects, do you kind of see that like it's a strength when actors don't know each other? Because then when they play on screen, like when a guy like walks in the marketplace, like, oh, I haven't met you yet, there's kind of like dynamic, or do you actually see as a benefit on screen, not saying production wise, but on screen when actors kind of know each other from before?
I would say it's only going to make a difference if you're working with like yeshiva guys who want to act. If you're working with professional actors, they're pros. It's not
Right.
going to matter whether or not they know each other. I mean, they're all going to do a table read beforehand. It's never the first time they're meeting each other on set.
Right.
The process is that once they have it, everybody comes. We do a read through, so we can kind of make script changes based on how the vibe goes. But sure, if they're pros, it's never an issue.
What would you say is your? Do you have a personal favorite muscle that you did?
No, I don't think so. I think
Really, they're all the
I
same to
mean
you.
I really do like them all. I think that there were some that stand out. Like that Schmaltz one does kind of it plays in my mind just because I just remember the choreography, the bell. Those were from the early
Yeah.
ones that we did. But there were some fun ones, like the tandem bike that we did in the third muscle was a cute one. And these guys, "Well, let's
By the way,
go
that's
back
the
to the bike,
one muscle that I don't get. Meaning,
a tandem bike because they requires. I don't even remember.
no, like the whole thing was that he couldn't fix the bike because the back pedals were barely used and the front pedals were all the way used. But how does that work? You just get new pedals.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure if maybe the Dubna Maggid had a different way to go. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Like a lot of yeah, a lot of these Mashalim, yeah, a little contrived, but I
Yeah.
mean, the train muscle. I remember also there was like so much. These things could be summed up in 30 seconds, and we're schlepping them out for 20 minutes. So there's a lot of exposition and a lot of redundancy in the songs. But hopefully, the children are entertained. And if
Yeah. Look at
oh,
this.
and the
I
candy
was.
muscle, remember that one? Like I had all my
Oh, I
kids.
remember the candy
That
muscle.
one.
Actually, the candy one I least remember kind of because I remember being freaked out by the makeup.
Yeah, right, right. The bad guy was like, yeah, that was also Michael Bahovsky in that one, I believe. Right? Da,
Yeah, he was in there.
da,
Yeah.
da,
Kramer there,
da,
Kenny in
da,
the
da,
chair,
da,
Ken in
da.
the air.
Oh yeah, right, right, right. Okay. Na 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 da, 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 na 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 na. Yeah, that's from Adir Bimelucha. Yeah, it's a Pesach song that my family sings, so we
Oh
converted
wow.
that into the candy song. Yep.
Oh wow.
Whatever.
But also what's interesting is that the Mashal Man, they're not all actors from the Frum community. So like when you teach them the songs, that's really new to them,
Yeah, right. And sometimes it's actually a little bit hard. The pronunciations are not always so easy. But
right?
most everybody was a Jewish actor. There were very few non-Jewish actors. Believe me, when you do a casting call, and especially you can write on the casting call, this is for a Jewish production, the floodgates open. You get more auditions that you know what to do with. There's a lot of Yidden
Right.
looking for acting opportunities. So it wasn't hard to get Jewish actors. And that was not our issue. I mean, probably I think the one time that there was something uncomfortable that we had, it wasn't so much a Jewish that we got a non-Jewish actor. It's that we found a Hasidic actor. But if you find a Hasidic actor, and this is for all those, this is a piece of advice I'm giving now to all the aspiring producers out there. If you do a casting call and there's a Hasidic actor who applies, say, this is awesome. The guy's talented. I've watched his reel. He's very likely not Shimer Shabbos. He's very likely only keeping the whole look because he wants the role. And he's actually
Really?
it's sad, but if you think about it, who are the
Wow.
guys, who are the Hasidim that are really trying to get into Hollywood? It's the Hasidim who want to get parts on television shows, who keep it because they want to look legit and they know how to
Right.
pronounce everything, but they might, for all you know, on social media, be saying the worst things about the community, and it might be,
Right.
who knows what they're doing in their private life, and it could hurt your production. Remember, if you're doing a project for a nonprofit such as Ura or anybody else, you got to be careful. I can't hire some actor who could reflect badly on the organization. So I'm just
Right.
something, I'm gonna be careful about.
I'm not sure what the actor's name is, but I remember that there was a lot of firm projects where there's actors and everything, and then just things of his background came to light, and it was very sad. And
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know whether we're thinking about the same person or not, but like yeah, you have these stories, and it is unfortunate, and it's important. It's important not to make your customers, like in my case, or even your own project. You got to make sure who you're associating with, because people do Google searches on different names, they come up cross-referencing. It's a concern. Yeah.
So I have one question before we get to the whole discussion, because all the things we want to talk about could revolve around Megillas Lester. But before that, there's one project that I grew up with, is your collaboration with Ohel Concert when you did the musical video production.
Yeah,
And
musical inspirations. That's what they
yeah,
called it.
medical inspiration. Yeah, I remember what fascinated. I remember like the most scratch part of that DVD was the behind the scenes, because I would repeat them again and again
That
because it
was a
was.
good behind the scenes. I'm glad you
Oh
brought that up.
yeah, it was
That was a
it was
good,
great.
yeah. That was like it really gave you a proper behind the scenes of making the film.
Yeah, and like literally from beginning to end, from writing to casting to production to post production, it gave everything.
What year that was? That like 2009 or so, like 2008,
Yeah, the concert was 2010, so you were probably working on the
2010.
project
Oh, so no, so
2009.
probably over the course of that year, 2010, if that's when it was. That okay, that was a good story. That was so the concert they were having Lipa and Ohad and AB Rottenberg. Nice lineup
Yeah,
for
and
the Ohad concert.
David Dax.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And David Dax, very good. So at the time, the executive director of OHEL was Norman Gilden, and he has since gone on to become a consultant for nonprofits. And he had a very creative kind of, he really wanted to do something special. And Ellie Kleinman was the big donor, and he wanted to do something. So we hatched this idea, hey, let's make a movie. And then the idea kind of grew, and let's integrate the movie with the concert. Now, this was really not something that's done, a
Right.
stage screen production.
There was one thing, but it was on stage. It was I don't know if you remember Hask 7 when they did a whole production play with the singers.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with that. Okay, so it could be that this was. I don't even remember. Maybe that we were ripping off that idea. But with this thing,
No,
was to
no, but I'm saying like it wasn't like your idea, because your idea was literally taking a movie,
yeah,
not
yeah.
on the concert, not on the stage, and integrating that with the concert.
So we had this right. So the concept was about different people getting helped by services from OHEL, and they all coming together to go to Eretz Yisrael, and then we would do the songs in between that kind of connect thematically to the different scenes in the movie. That was great. And we cast the film, and we shot it really well. We had a great DP on set who really shot it beautifully. It was a really nice
It
production.
was very well done.
And we didn't spare any expense. We all went to Eretz Yisrael for the production, and we shot like going to the airport. And my father-in-law, Rabbi Crone, had at least a nice cameo in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
As
yeah.
the guy talking to Dan Brody, who played Bernie in that movie. That's right. That was
But for that scene, by the way, um, for those who don't know the video or the project we're familiar with, but basically it's like the journey of a guy going to Eretz Yisrael, and he's really discovering himself and his relationship with
Uziel, I
his
hope
son.
when
So
you
Rabbi
edit this thing,
Crone.
you're going to cut in the actual scenes of the movie so people can see what you're talking about, right?
Oh, I gotta find that DVD. Gosh,
I'll
but
send you a link, dude. Okay, I'll send you all right.
yes.
Drop in the scenes. Okay, so now cut to Rabbi Crone. But yeah, in
Okay,
that
yeah.
scene, we shot that. That was actually wow. I remember that. We wanted to. It was a scene in a coffee shop at the
Mm-hmm.
airport. So the first challenge was, well, we got to film it in a coffee shop because we're not going to be able to build out that set. Where can we
Yeah.
find a coffee shop that we can close down? Well, we have to do the coffee shop during off hours. So there was the coffee. It's not called Coffee Bean. The name's escaping me. There's a coffee shop. You'll see in the credits in the movie in Teaneck that was kind enough to allow us to start filming at 11 o'clock at night or so after they closed up. It wasn't open, and we worked straight until Shachris. I mean, we all through the night. When the scene that you see in the movie was shot at 2, 3 in the morning. It was that kind of a
Yeah,
set.
makes sense.
And then for the shot overlooking Rabbi Crone's shoulder, where you see the airport, that was a green screen. And we put real footage from JFK, like walking into the green screen. So, and even we had Mayor Bloomberg wishing something. We put green screen on the television. That Mayor
Can I
Bloomberg had a
can I
cameo.
guess one challenge you had about that?
Sure.
That everything had to be on the camera always had to be still, never moving, never handheld. Why? Because it's very difficult in post production when you do green screen to fit in the doors, right? Because you also green screen the door to make it look like it was in the airport and the TV screen. So every camera had to
Absolutely
be
right.
still.
Look, dude, I live in the world of green screen. We shoot green screen every day. Everything has to be on sticks. Everything's got to be on tripods because you're right. You can't move. It happens to be that the technology is such that we're working on being able to move the camera and the virtual
Yeah.
background should work in tandem by using the Unreal Engine and gaming engines, but that is way more sophisticated than what was going on back then for sure. So yeah, we shot that scene in the coffee shop with Rabbi Crone, who ended up being a really good actor. He
Yeah.
performed for the movie. I think I talked about that on the behind the scenes, how
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
he bets him. Look, every professional speaker is in a sense an actor. So,
For the little bit that he spoke, like when he was speaking one on one with the main character, was that improvised? Was that him just saying something? Did he
we
prepare
had
something?
a
Did you
script
write
for
that in the
him, but
script?
I imagine he improvised because he's going to do what he does.
Right.
We gave him the framework of what to say and talking about going to the Kaisel at night. I remember he's like, that's so personally him that I'm sure he just
Yeah.
riffed on his own of what he believed to be the right thing to say.
Yeah.
But it was good. You're right.
The
I'm glad you brought that movie up because I really enjoyed that production. I remember
you
one of
could
the,
tell. You could tell like the work was all in it.
we had, that way had, there was an actor in there who plays the old man, the Holocaust survivor. The actor's name is
Yeah,
Lawrence.
and he was in Mashal Man,
Right. We used him for Mashal Man, which was, I believe,
the king one, the king
right,
and the
right. He
prince.
played the king. Very good. Oh,
Yeah,
you really know the
and the
work.
train. He was the train conductor.
Yeah. Look at you. I didn't know that Lawrence was Jewish. We only found out on the trip because I asked him if he was Jewish before we went to Eretz Yisrael, and he
Really?
told me no. But what, of course, in retrospect, what he meant was he's not religious. At the time, he was saying like, I'm not Jewish. I don't, I don't prob like but it was so much more meaningful when we take him there. You take somebody there to Israel, you
Yeah.
went took him to the Kaisel, he was crying real tears at the Kaisel. Like, this is a Yid becoming reconnected. It's very, very nice. And we actually we got a real permit at the Kaisel to shoot the scene, which we did legit. And we filmed like the bar mitzvah scene, with with Simon File, the actor, and Dan Brody.
You know what's funny? You brought that up, and it kind of reminded me of a story. Mendy Pellin, I'm sure you know of Ben Mendy Pellin. He made the "Cry No More" music video,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that when he filmed the scenes at the Kaisel, he did not get a permit. But what he did was is that he he hired triple the size production that he needed, so that when the police came by, they thought like, oh, such a big production, they for sure have a permit, like, oh, like, we don't have to ask them. So he just
Yeah,
hired a
that
bunch of
sounds like
production
Mendy, to make
pieces.
that kind of cheshbon. Yeah, okay.
Um, so yeah, that project, and also what I love about that is that I think it was like the very first video that I remember growing up with, even though it was part of a concert, but I remember growing up with that, like, you realize that wow, this is like another level of from entertainment. Like, these are really professional
But I
actors.
will tell
The
you, though, Zeal, the reason why you haven't seen that many more of those kinds of productions, it's not because people don't enjoy it, it's because it costs too much to make.
money,
It's
money,
all about that. Like, in other words, oh hell,
true.
they're in the business of raising money, not spending money. So you want to create just enough to be able to make the audience very excited. So this way, but if you're spending all that money on a concert and then on top of it, you're making a movie,
A movie.
can you justify the mum and hegdish that it's not so simple? And
Yeah,
fortunately, it was a schus that I got to work on it, but it's no shocker that it doesn't happen the year after that. It's not like, why wouldn't they want to do it again? Well, I'll tell you,
right.
there's probably 75,000 reasons why they can't do it again. It's like,
There, yeah. On this podcast, I interviewed so many actors and directors that literally like, oh, why isn't there a sequel? Why isn't there another thing?
yeah,
It's money. It's what it
that's it.
is.
I got a nickel for everybody asking me when's Megillas Lester's sequel coming out.
Yeah, you try to fundraise for that.
Sure, tried once. And I quickly took that down. Truth is, there are so many wonderful, well-meaning, Merubim Tzarchei Amcha organizations out there to go raise money for a movie. I don't like the way it's nit Shane. I'm not doing that anymore. Somebody wants to sponsor it because into hate, that's great. But Baruch Hashem, lightning struck once for Megillas Lester. I don't anticipate it striking twice. It is a lot cheaper. So if anybody listening wants to sponsor, good news. I could do it for less than I did it last time.
Yeah.
but it's still a fortune. It's a fortune.
Um,
I had to hire 7 artists for 12 for I had to hire 12 artists for 7 months for Megillas Lester.
wow.
There's no way.
7 months.
Seven
And by
months
the
of
way,
a
7 months is already like normally that it doesn't take 7 months. It takes much longer. So the fact that
yeah.
you did
Oh
seven
yeah,
months
that
is
was
great.
work around the clock, and these guys worked. And also, it was like, let's face it, this was new tech for a lot of people, for myself, motion capture. It was all 3D. Trying to create, the poor man's Pixar movie in 7 months with a skeleton crew of a team. It was a very ambitious project, and it costs a ton of money. But Baruch Hashem, it was underwritten, so
So if we're already going to Megillas Lester, so how did that start? Because you were already well into animation. You did Ana Avda. You
yeah,
did
very
Anhana
good.
music video. I remember my
Mm.
my
Mm.
mother showed it to me because she was laughing at the fact that the violin guy was like folding his legs up and down like in a weird way, and my parents were like, "Oh, Uziel will love this," and I watched it. I remember, and then only later when I rewatched it when I was much older, I'm like, "Oh wait, that's Chananya," in the
Ah,
video. So I'm like, "Oh wow, so he for sure made this."
that's
But
right. That's right. I have my little cameo there of me and David Gabe.
yeah,
Yeah, Lana Avda was that's all like 2D animation, and I had these guys working for me who were, we were enjoying the 2D animation. So I told them one time that I have this idea. I put it on as a play in camp about somebody messes up the Purim story. Basically, the Purim story meeting Back to the Future and that sort of thing. And like, how can we so let's make it as an animated movie. Ugh, it would cost a fortune. Anyway, so they said, let's make a teaser trailer. And I think if you hunt for it on YouTube, it probably still is out there. It
it's
was a
the one with the
teaser.
humming and the thunderstorm, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's
that one. Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah. Yeah.
created that without having any real hope of ever producing anything more than that. It was just a teaser trailer for the movie, and Hashgacha would have it that the right person saw that teaser trailer. And I got an email from somebody who I wasn't that close with. And he says, how much would it cost to produce the whole Megillas Lester? I'm Badafka not saying his name because he doesn't want me to say who he was.
Yeah.
But he said, how much it cost? And I told him it would be, I thought it would be over $100,000, which is a joke. It cost like 5 times that much. So, in the end, but that's what I
Mhm.
thought it would. And to his credit, he said he was going to underwrite it. And he stuck with it when the costs became much more excessive. Because we didn't have even a script written up. We certainly didn't
Mhm.
even think it was going to be a musical at the time.
Right.
And my sister wrote those amazing songs. Megillas Lester has great songs. I mean,
Oh
Shmuley
yeah.
Rosenberg did all the music, but my sister
Which, by
wrote
the way,
the.
we're gonna have on the podcast to make this soon. By the way.
You get Shmuley?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shmuley will have a lot to say about this whole thing. Shmuley's a genius. He had the incredible stuff that he did all the music for that. So, because the behind the scenes of McGillis Lester's are also really good. They really do
Oh
give you
yeah.
a
They
window
were
into
so
the
innovative.
motion capture and the music and the animation styles and the things and the characters and the actors.
Yeah.
It's Kedai for, if your audience should just go to YouTube and pull them up. They're all up
Yeah.
there.
Well, I remember like even people because I used to be the guy that watched all the behind the scenes and all the credits, but I remember people actually enjoying watching those
Hmm.
of McGill's Lester because it
Thank you.
was really like innovative, really into it.
Look, we learned a lot on the process. And they had a whole team of Gaim who had, I remember I was talking to one of the Gaim during the behind the scenes videos I was interviewing. So one
Yeah.
of the guys, I had one of these guys, not Jewish guy, and I said, "So, what'd you learn about the Jewish community when you're building out the scene, Lester's hometown of Myrtle Park, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Myrtle,
Yeah.
Al
Yeah.
Hadassah, of the, how, what'd you learn?" I'm expecting him to say, "Oh, we had to make all these minivans and strollers, about the from community."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the doorway had to be a certain amount of cubits for the mezuzah to be affixed. Like he's telling me it's halachas. I'm like, yeah, dude, I had no idea that we were
Wow. That's
sophisticated.
crazy.
We really did try, and as like probably the most significant behind the scenes one to watch is sourced versus fiction. That's one where I go through
Yeah.
what has Makuris and what is just made up Narishkeit.
Right.
That was
Exactly.
important because
Because of
for
the
those
subject
of
matter.
yeah, especially for those who have who enjoyed the tumult of the yeshiva community boycotting Megillas Lester for changing the Purim story.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because
Yeah.
in Chabad, where I'm from, like it was like there was not really much of that. There was like remnants,
Of
like
course not, because Chabad's not into that sort of thing. They're not like,
yeah, exactly.
Chabad can be much cooler about this kind of stuff. But in Lakewood, where especially it was in Ibriyar and people were bored in, Purim time when this mountain was going too long. So,
Right.
they're looking for what they can make a macha about. So some guy went around, got signatures that I changed the story of Purim. So of course, that it was a
Wow.
Narishkeit, nothing, like
Right.
it was no fun when it was happening. I didn't enjoy that. It probably helped sales, frankly, but it's no fun. I'm playing for that team. I'm not looking to get
Yeah.
boycotted. But there's people were very supportive. I had all people come out of the woodwork. I remember Rabbi Yaakov Bender just calling me. He says, "I just saw the macha. I want you to know I just bought 3 copies." It's just wanted to let me know.
Wow.
It's like he wanted to let me know that. Anyway, so of course it's short lived, and now Baruch Hashem, I'm proud to say Megillas Lester is Kol Yisrael's official Purim movie. It's I
Yeah,
don't think it's
exactly.
anything I don't think it's anything
Yeah.
that people watch more than every year Purim. Oh, I'll tell you a funny story. This people don't know about a year I didn't make money on the sales of McGillis Lester. I got paid to make McGillis Lester. Right. I got paid nicely to make it.
Right.
And then the donor, whatever, proceeds came back, he was able to recoup. It was a fraction of what it cost, but he
Right.
was able to
Yeah.
recoup.
Fortunately.
So I used to watch the rentals and it made, I mean, get a kind of hurry. It made more than other From movies just because of the sheer longevity of it and the popularity of
Yeah,
it.
it was one of those first ones that did
Yeah,
rentals.
yeah, and it still now sells and rents and whatever. I think this
Yeah.
year they put it on USBs finally and all that. Anyway, so I just for the kicks I would watch, and it would pretty much have a consistent following. People would consistently rent it all year round. In the middle of a year, I think it was May or June, it's about a year or two after McGillis Lester, it shot up for about 4 days. Like shot up, by an order of magnitude. All of a sudden, like everybody's renting McGillis Lester just for a few random days. And I couldn't believe, like, what's going on? Like, why is everybody watching McGillis Lester? And then it went back to where it was beforehand. And I figured it out. It was the Daf Yomi cycle was learning Masechta Megillah, and they got to the Agadata Gemaras in the teens over there about what about the, and you could just imagine every conversation. Two guys are learning, or a Maggid Shir is saying, "Hey, this is if you look carefully at Megillas Lester, you'll see that Haman's barber shop was 22 years in Kartzum, which is like." It was a Gemara in Megillah,
Yeah.
but if you look really carefully and you study the artwork, you'll see it. And you just have enough people who notice little details. They reference the movie, and people saw the movie just during that Daf
Wow.
Yomi time. So I don't know if it's a callback, if it says something about Daf Yomi or about the movies or Klal Yisrael, but it was just like a little fun tidbit about Megillas Lester during that time.
Wow. To kind of put it back to like the origins of Megillas Lester, because I do
Yeah,
want like a lot of the audience here is like very much into like liking the process of making these things. The one thing you didn't mention the behind the scenes, which you did a little bit, but the writing process is so gruesome when it comes
yeah.
to writing and
Sure.
stuff like that. Can you tell me a little about that? And also, my main question is also like, how many drafts of Megillas Lester did you
Yeah.
have till you get to the final draft?
Well, it was we started, that was a real screenplay that had to be written, and we were working as a
Mm-hmm.
collaboratively. I had myself and my sisters, I have brilliant sisters that are all great editors, and we were all kind of kicking back and forth the script. And we actually graduated from Google Docs to Celtex. I don't know if your audience knows, if you want to explore screenwriting, Celtex, as in CELTX, it's an online kind of a screenwriting where you can work collaboratively, and it formats it all properly. It's a healthy way to go with screenwriting. So we lived the screenplay. I mean, you work it, and there was drafts and redrafts and rewrites, and for a long time, because we kept saying, okay, this date will have script lock and you can't make changes. But it's baloney because you're going to keep on making changes as you can't.
Exactly.
And with McGillis Lester, the way a production process goes like this is the step after script locked is the casting and recording. It's all a recording session. You're essentially making an audio, like a Shmuel Kunda thing you mentioned. You're making an audio presentation.
Right.
Then from there on in, you're done with the script. It is unchanging. You're not going in for reshoots in the conventional sense. You're really
Right.
just in the world of animation for the next 6 straight months. So
Because
we
for,
did
for
have
those who don't realize that animation, as opposed to like recording, like, oh, you make a mistake, okay, well, let's just reshoot like a real guy just saying, picking up lines or stuff. But animation, it's very much takes forever and it takes so long, and especially like every frame, there's like hundreds of frames per minute. And so what you have to do is that you have to get your script done because you can't make any changes once you start going through animation because then you have to redo tons of not it like at most weeks for just
no,
one
it's true.
scene. Like
It's true. It's very
it's tons of
costly to
work.
make changes.
Yeah.
even with our render farm and all the different
Yeah.
computers and things.
That render farm was insane.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember how many 30 some odd, I think it was 30 something or 40 something computers just rendering all day and 24 hours a day. I mean, otherwise, I think that's what you alluded to. Every a minute of video, 60 seconds, every second is 25 frames, I think, for animation we had, 20, 30 frames per second. So you do the math. Remember, every frame is go to your chat GPT and tell it to make a picture. You saw it slowly building a picture. That's
Yeah.
today. 12 years ago, it was super slow. And it was now that's super slow, multiply times 30, that's 1 second. So that means if you want to do a minute of animation, that could take you, I don't know, to do the math, forever,
Yeah,
weeks and
exactly.
months. If it could literally take an hour to do a render of a single frame. So it could take a month to do an animation of a single minute of video. So, and you're doing these things and seeing how it looks and then redoing it. So you don't want to make changes. I mean, we did
Right.
anyway. Of course we made changes, but you try not to. So the process is tedious. So we did do the scripting. We worked very hard on it. We got the script done. And then it was a question of getting the recording done. And then the recording, and remember the actors are not together. Every line in Megillas Lester was recorded independently, separate time. You see on the behind the scenes, you can watch these actors. They're working by themselves, except for the songs where we had the like groups of people together. But otherwise, each actor by themselves, many times on different days, would go into the studio and do their audio recording, and then I would piece
Yeah.
it together.
What would you say when it came to the actual recording process of the voices? Because people might think like, oh, you're just recording, so you just record, you make a mistake, go back. Well, what would you say is the hardest part of the recording process?
For the
At least for Megillas Lester, would you say?
yeah, I mean we had to anticipate how the dynamic would work with the other actors. So you kind of have to
Oh.
visualize the banter and the back and forth and the tone.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's not like just do it 10 different ways and we'll pick the best one. You can go to your mind trying to do that. You kind of have to really have a vision and decide how it's going to work.
Right.
And there's also a tension because you don't want to let the actor go until you feel like you have that take.
Exactly.
So it's hard. I mean, you should talk to Shmuley about this because when you get him on the show, because Shmuley was the one who ran those recording sessions and he does this all the
Oh, he
time.
did the recordings even not for the music?
Yeah, that's correct. He was there.
Oh, wow.
He did the audio engineering for the whole project. So he was our sound engineer for the music, and he did all the he did all the vocals. Yeah, we did the sound design primarily. We did all the sound effects and finding that stuff. And there's improv also on the spot, even beyond the script.
Yeah.
I don't think we had. I mean,
As for the audience to realize that every speck of dialogue dynamic or just how it sounds could change the whole thing when it comes to the animation. Meaning, for example, if I go no, okay, so you could simply just animate the person just saying so. But if you go no, like angry, you have to animate the whole model to react to the entire thing, and that just takes longer and more. So it's crazy they brought it up because I just realized that.
I mean, we'll see how things change now because of AI and because of what kind of changes and what things can be changed dynamically. But that was certainly the way it was then. It was, but I enjoyed the recording sessions. I actually did enjoy. There's a little less. It's a little easier in some ways because you don't have to worry about all the other factors of filming.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
on set, it's a little
You
easier.
can really
and
just
a
be
little more
free in the
comfortable.
studio because there's no restraint within camera, within
That's right.
screen, with
Or like when Nachum Siegel came in for his little cameo, he does his Good Morning.
yeah, that
Good
was
Morning
great.
Shushan.
That was amazing.
I had written lines for him. Good morning, Shushan, trying to be doing all kinds of news reporting. He did like 4 or 5 takes. And then he said, Chanaya, do you mind if I just do what I want to do? I said, yeah, go for it. Good morning, Shushan. And like, of course, that's what we used in the movie. It was so
Yeah,
much better.
exactly.
Like, it was just, sometimes you got
Nachum
just
Siegel
scare
is
actors.
a legend. It's
Yeah, he is.
crazy.
Yeah, he's the goat,
I
man.
still want to get him in the podcast also, but yeah, he's such a legend. I
Good
remember
man.
growing up and like he had that like little way of how he introduced different people, and he was so consistent with like each time he would go like Avram Fried would go Avraham Fried,
That's
you know,
right.
like
Yeah, he was the voice of the Haas concerts, of course. Yeah.
yeah. Um, what other? So you had Nachum Siegel, and I'm trying to remember. Was there other people that you had cameo or voice
And
things?
Megillas Lester?
Yeah,
Do we have any other
trying to remember.
celebrity voices? I don't think so. I
You
don't-
did have a Yiddish render of Yesh Tikva. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. There's some real subtle stuff. We made sure, like, when Achashverosh can't sleep and they bring out the Sefer HaZichronos, the eagle-eyed viewer can notice that we made an art scroll Schottenstein edition Sefer HaZichronos.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that
I
you
don't know,
said you
just
brought that up
little
behind the
little
scenes. Yeah.
nods to different things that people would just enjoy and get a kick out of. But that was a special project to work on. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah.
It made it hard for my other customers because remember I'm doing dinner videos all year, and it was hard to
Oh
focus on the
yeah.
other work during that year. There are some customers that I probably didn't do as good a job as I should have, and probably
Right.
lost. But
And
okay,
what people don't realize about film is that, especially animation, is that all that time you spend to focus on that, because when you work on a film, it's not like a business where you get a bulk of products and you sell one product and you buy back, you buy more and you go little by little. But when it comes to film, you have to really anticipate a year of losing and then after that only gain. And so all that process, like not just financially, but also when it comes to production and using your employees' times, it's like it's really like a hard time to navigate at that time.
it is absolutely a challenge, and that's why there's not a lot of it. It really is the truth. That is part of the problem because the infrastructure is not in place to be able to do that. Look, if you're doing this for Parnassa, you can't take off a year to do a project and then try to make your money
Right.
on the end. First of all, the economics of actually the sales are probably not good enough. But besides that, just the process is not survivable. That's why I got in most of all the bigger project work we do is sponsored project work. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
I am, this is a piece of advice I'll give to your audience, which I do believe is helpful. Okay. There was a fellow who wrote a book for children. This is a story has a point here. He wrote a book for children and he wanted me to make a movie version of the book. Okay. So he said, all right, Chanaya, I've got that for argument's sake, $25,000 to work with. I want you to produce this and then I'm going to sell it and I'll make back my money on the sales. I told him, no, it's a terrible idea. Here's what you
Yeah.
should do. You're going to raise $50,000. You're going to then turn around and pay me $25,000 and you will put $25,000 in your pocket for being a executive producer. Then we will produce it and you will give the product out for free to Mechanchem because it had educational value. Because
Right.
if you do it that way, you've made your 25,000 up front, meaning you producer, you the executive producer or an owner of this thing, and you are going to definitely have more saturation in the marketplace if you give it out for free on and use chinuch.org and other kinds of venues where other kinds of platforms where people are looking for good content. They're not,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll show in classrooms around the world. You got to sell it in the Judaica store. There's not enough dollars there to make. Get
Right.
your stuff sponsored up front and give it out. I mean, some people make the argument, okay, if you get it out for free, people aren't machshav it. That may be true. Maybe you have to have some kind of a small charge. But the hashkafa of getting things sponsored and make your money up front is absolutely something people should keep in mind. Producers out there, man, it's tough. I started I started with a couple of other guys. We started a coalition from producers to be mechazik each other and help out. We started last year. We call it the FCC. It's the From Creators Coalition.
Oh,
So we got together last year, about 45, 50 different companies. It was really nice. All kind of talking shop, networking, trying to help each other. And
nice.
hopefully this year we're going to do it again and see if we can be mechazik the production community within the From community.
One thing you didn't touch about Megillas Lester, even the behind the scenes, is marketing, which is a
Yeah.
major. For people that don't know, marketing, anything could be, to be generous, at minimum 25% of the money it costs to make that product, and especially film even more. Um, would you want to talk about that?
Megillas Lester, which was a very expensive for a project. Um, I would say 30-40% of what the whole budget cost is what we had to additionally spend for marketing. And of course, the sponsor paid for that. When Megillas Lester was launched, part of its success, and I'd like to think it's because it's a great movie, but of course, it needed the massive marketing blitz of
Mm-hmm.
the print media and the online media and then and all the different trailers and so much push, and that's what's necessary. I was just Chaim Weiss from 24/6 was recently telling me the cute quote. He was saying how he used to think that marketing was like critical and super important. He says, no, it's not true. Marketing's everything. It's all about the marketing.
Yep, marketing's everything. But would you talk about like how that was? Because you probably, I guess the best part of the film process is that when you end up releasing it and you get the feedback from the marketing, like, but that's like when you start marketing, that's the stage where you get feedback and
Yeah,
stuff.
look, dude, marketing
Like
is the most.
working on that for 7 months, and you
As a
get like the release, like,
producer,
oh,
the marketing is the best part of it because I'm doing interviews. I get to see my name in lights in in different publications. We did screening events. We did one in a theater in Baltimore by my hometown, and we did one at Lincoln Center. We did a actual screening event. I don't know if you got to see that one, and you
wow,
could YouTube that one. We did a
yeah,
Megillas Lester
yeah.
screening event. Nachum Siegel was the master of ceremonies. We had the actors there. We sang upside down at the thing, and we filled the theater. It was amazing. It was amazing.
But as a producer or director, I mean, you were a director for sure, but it's like
Both.
you're working on this for almost a year, and then you
Mhm.
just get like all this feedback and people liking it and giving you like it must have
Ah,
been like that was
Nachis.
probably yeah, but it was also like probably a stressful phase of between that where it's like, oh, what are people gonna say? Are they gonna like it? What's
Yeah,
the
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, it happened to be that it was conflated with the macha at the same time. So like the day after it got
right,
released, I had to deal with this macha. So that was, I think, the nerves of what people are going to think was probably overshadowed by the fact that I had to kind of justify its existence and say, okay, it's not Chazer Treif. Okay, no, that
right.
was that was what that was. But certainly there were the accolades and and all the hype. It was a lot of fun. That was a good skufa. I enjoyed that.
What would you say is a better nachas for you? The fact that of the whole hype at the beginning or its longevity afterwards? What would you say is what gives you more like, oh,
I think it speaks more to the longevity. See, the hype was it could the hype you can kind of write away with, you can write off as good marketing,
yeah,
right? Like things can there's so much noise about it, but if people after they lay in the Megillah, they go home and they sit around with their family and watch my movie.
that's the best thing.
Nice, that's nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And every year I always get texts every year. Hey, we just sat and rewatched Megillas Lester. It's great. I love it. It's nice. It's nice.
What would you say is the best part that most people like about Megillas Lester, based on the feedback that you get?
Well, I mean, there are certain moments that I get more feedback than anything else. Having Haman talking to hey guy and hey dude is probably one of the most popular, hey
And that's
man.
like 3 seconds of the
Yeah,
entire
right,
film.
right. It was just a clever little, thing we put in there. But I'll tell you a funny story. We were after the year after Miguel Lester came out, the following year, you always have like a couple of very bored Mishigoyim who were all very worked up about the Bacha, and they just couldn't let it go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I would get
Hmm.
like, there was somebody who wanted me to really ensure that we would take it off the shelves. Like, I can't, dude, just go, really, I was the nicest way I could say, go get a life. But anyway, it was ratcheting up, and I thought I needed to get some help from Rabbanim. So I was, so Rav Aaron Feldman, who is not someone who's into from entertainment, and he's a Rashiva in Baltimore and Israel, and he's a Kanoi, but I'm close with him, and he felt like I could use, some support. So he felt that maybe we'll do a Din Torah where we'll get a few Rosh Hashivas to watch Megillas Lester and make up Zak. Now, oh my gosh, I was thinking to myself, there's no way I would. And he was saying Shmuel Kamenetsky, who is also supportive of doing it. And then if this guy was
But
making a
just the mere
macha,
thought of sitting down about it. All right,
yeah, I
here's
pass
watch
out the
Megillas
popcorn.
Lester.
Let's have a bunch of Rosh Hashivas watch Megillas Lester. So I said, honestly, Rosh Hashiva, I can't do that. So he says, all right, at the very least, tell me the story. Tell me the story. Let me understand what it is. So I had some other people there with me. One of the people there was a young Rav. I'll leave out his name, but he was a young Rav who was helping to tell the story. So I was starting to explain the story. There was a boy, he was making a play, he got bonked on the head, he's now a Suda Shverish. He tells Vashti to go to the Suda. Oh, he messed up the story, right? But it's clearly a dream, the whole thing. And Aaron Feldman is smiling. And then Big Son and Serish want to continue to kill, but and they want to kill Achashverosh. So while our main character wants Vashti to have it, the horse eats it. At this point, this young Rav says, so then the horse eats it and dies, and then Dr. Seuss comes out, and Dr. Seuss, who's trying to say, like, the horse doctor, and like he says he can't kill the star, but we forgot that we're talking to a Rosh Hashiva. It's like he got lost in the whole excitement of telling Megillas Lester. And like he's like, and then he like, you recognize where you are in the quiet in the room, and yeah, okay, carry on. It's just a funny moment. So it's rare to have that kind of thing in Klal Yisrael. Where,
Oh gosh. But you probably don't hear about that thing anymore much, like that macha.
nah, of course not. It was an Irish guy.
Right.
It is. Look, I would be the first person to say Megillas Lester is not for everybody. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. Videos are not for everybody.
Right, exactly.
Oh, just don't buy it. But not everything needs macha. It's like it's
Right,
silly
exactly.
to have macha. Just don't. If you don't think, should I have called? If I could relive the whole thing, I think I would have reconsidered naming the movie. I called it Megillas Lester for obviously because Lester is a play on Esther. Obviously, that's why I call it that.
Right.
In retrospect, if I would have called this thing the Purim Spiel, because the kid needed to make a Purim Spiel and he got knocked on the head,
Yeah.
I would have had no macha at all. It would have been a Purim
Think
Spiel.
so?
That's what I think. I think Megillas Lester rubbed people the wrong way. It was kind of a secular word sounding name.
Yeah.
It didn't sound.
But also you could say like these people were looking for something, so these
Okay,
people would have said
okay.
the same thing then.
That's what. Yeah. I remember that's what it was. It was Mayor Zlotowitz, Zechron Levracha. He was the one who told me that joke. That it was like that year that Megillas Lester came out. It was an Ibra Yars. There was an extra month of this man. So the guys weren't focused on their learning enough anyway. They needed something to keep them busy during that last the last month of the winter.
Are you
No-
aware of the video Young Abraham?
Sure, of course.
Oh yeah. So
They contacted me right away. The young Abraham, who are the guys who were involved in production after we did the Megillas Lester. Sure.
yeah. So I interviewed the guy who wrote it, and he loved Megillas Lester, and his
Yeah,
basically was
okay.
saying he said the same thing, that this is entertainment, that it's not meant to like.
Sure.
Right.
You're not supposed to be,
So-
you're not going to learn from it, but like there was there was a mechanech in Las Vegas when now the community is already bigger there in Vegas, but in Henderson or these out of town communities over there in Nevada that took Megillas
Yeah.
Lester and made a curriculum out of it. Of course, they weren't saying it's the real truth, but like they watch it because these are kids that were holding by that. So they watch it. Obviously, this is not what happened, but here's where we can pull they're doing they're using midrashim to explain this. This is the messaging.
Yeah.
So it was a way. It was obviously a kind of a lighthearted way to teach that time of year, but if they can make something positive out of it, so spin it properly. Use it for what it's for. It's not.
Right.
Not them. And if and maybe little kids shouldn't watch it. I'm okay with that. If they're not able to discern, I understand that. But if you and I are watching something like this, we get a kick out of it. We understand. I would urge people to watch the sourced versus fiction behind the scenes to recognize which things we really spent time on. We did some pretty like really clever things over there. Mamuchan being Haman, why he changed his name, and
Yeah.
Chaim Kanievsky, like we tried to really work stuff into it.
Yeah, and you would say, and by the way, I could tell you from experience, like you heard these like little snippets in like when you were learning about the Purim story, or when you listened to the Purim story, but I could safely say that because Megillas Lester brought those little things out and I picked them up, it kind of stayed in my brain, like, oh wow, like I could.
I hope people know that Haman from Amalek had red hair because our flashback when he was a barber had red
Yeah.
hair. And I hope that people look at Achashverosh as a big fat hairy guy, which the Gemara says he was. Like these are details that try to, him wearing the big day kahuna, that's Chazal, and the fact that it didn't fit him and it was too small, that's a good discussion point. Why should there's no
Yeah.
reason to think that there would be a nace for him for it
By
to
the
fit
way,
him
that was
properly?
the darkest part of the movie when he burnt that guy's face.
I know, right? It is true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he also killed poor Dr. Seuss, but okay,
I know. Oh gosh, I remember
no.
that. Oh,
Right.
but that's what comedy is. It kind of stretches the bar a little bit. That's what comedy is.
Yeah.
Did you probably the hardest part of writing it was the comedy, I would say, right? Because
Comedy is hard. Don't let anybody
Right.
ever tell you otherwise. Comedy is hard,
Mhm.
man.
yeah,
That's what they say.
like, for
Dying is
example,
easy. Comedy is hard.
yeah. Like for example, I make once a month like these little videos for the school I work. We do like these Shabbos of Larkin videos, and all we have to do is just run around and like pour water on each other, and the kids having a great time. But
There you go.
but you're really trying to strive for all ages, and that is very hard to do.
Yeah, yeah. And not every joke hits, you know that. It's like it doesn't always
Hmm.
work, but I think like the biggest laugh moment of Megillas Lester is honestly when the out loud laughing is the high five we get from Shashgaz and
Yes.
like that's
Oh
like when he
gosh,
says, "No, I have to find a new wife now," like that little throwaway line like that. But boom, man, that just nails it. It's about comedic timing and just things that work.
yes. And there's no dialogue. That's the
Right.
crazy thing. That's what people have to understand about comedy and movies is or in film or videos. It's not you just simply saying a joke. It's a lightning in a bottle moment of that thing.
That's
It's
right.
the
So
editing, the
look, I'll,
animation,
if
the
I get
timing.
another opportunity, I want to do it again. I don't know what it would be. I'd love to do more, but got to
Would
make a living. So.
would you say what the part two would have been?
Um, there were different floated ideas. The easy thing people say, oh, do one on, Yitzias Mitzrayim and we'll have Yitzias Ephraim. Or someone said we should do one about Shavuos and we'll call it Dr. Ruth. I mean, like all these silly jokes. But
Oh, it wasn't gonna be a
it could have
continuation
been. It
of
could have
Lester's
Lester's
story.
character. No, we were thinking bring back the world of Lester. Or we had something else, maybe a whole different adventure. We were going to make them into kind of figuring out puzzles. We did have little half-baked scripts that we were working with. At the end of the day, it wasn't something that needed to happen, and it's just got kind of exhausting. I don't know. I got a bunch of half-baked scripts. If somebody came to me with a big pile of money saying we want to produce some movies, I am there. I want to
Yeah,
do it. You hear me, donor? I want to do it.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's not so push it.
What's the one thing that you would say was the best like miracles type of story? You know what I'm saying? Though, like, oh wow, that was such a like I can't believe this happened when
Yeah,
while
Miguel
making
Lester's a
Megillas
pretty good
Lester.
one. Miguel Lester is somebody seeing a teaser trailer and jump and stepping forward to sponsor a project, man. That is not
Yeah.
push it. So I mean, I would say chizik for anybody, if you have an idea for a movie, I think it's probably your best bet. Make a trailer for it because
Hmm.
then people see you're serious and it shows some skills and put it out there and let Hashem do the rest, if they make that shidduch.
You had subtitles for the Megillas Lester, right?
Yeah, yeah, we want to do it for all audiences. We did it in lots of languages.
So what did you do when it came to those jokes? Because not all jokes were,
I do.
you know
I
what I
don't
mean?
remember. I don't know that the whoever translated into Farsi into Russian for us, which we did. I
Yeah.
have no idea how well that translated because
Oh,
I don't know.
really?
We hired people to do that, and they typed all the stuff up. Oh man, it was hard work. And like also technically work all the
Subtitles are
Blu-rays with
so
all
hard.
those, yeah, and the discs. Oh, it was like that was a different time. That was man.
But like now, like thank God for
Yeah,
AI
no, AI will
generating
do it all for
subtitles.
you. It just generates
Yeah.
it. Uziel, I have got to run to a shoot actually.
Oh, okay, perfect. So,
I am
I'm about to end right
showtime.
now. So,
It was
can
great.
I end up with one question?
Please.
Okay, one more question. What's your um what would you say was your one moment in your career of making these videos and the film production? What did you say was the most satisfying moment that kind of pushed you to never being burnt out when it comes to making these things? Like when it comes to filming and editing, we all come up to this point where it's like, oh, this is a lot.
There's
What would you
gonna,
say
I
is
mean,
that one moment?
I think I could tell you what it is. It's just, it's like it's the beginning of a whole nother long conversation. But sitting at the CM Hashas and watching a year and a half to 2 years worth of work on the big screen, where 90,000 people there and quarter of a million Yidden around the world, there's no amount of effort or frustration that will ever overshadow the nachas and the impact that I can make on such a huge event in Klal Yisrael. Okay,
Yeah.
that is by far the biggest chus. And it's interesting. I'm ending the interview now with you, so I can run to Manhattan now and go film somebody for the CMA. I know it's 2 years out, but I'm starting now.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
interviewing
wow.
people's stories, and we're getting we're getting geared up. So that's the big kahuna of all the different fun projects I do. Getting people to learn more and inspiring more learning, there's nothing more chashuv than that. That'll
Wow.
offset any frustration and challenge.
All right, so let's end off with you saying like upcoming projects you have that you want people to know about, something maybe you're involved with, like some event, fundraiser.
Let's see. Right now, we've got a bunch of dinners that are happening shortly. The Hill Academies in Denver is next week, and you got the Turk, and you got Share Tzion in Edison and Highland Park. I'm just doing the name droppings this way,
Right,
my
yeah, yeah.
clients can have some nachas. Working on documentaries about the Jewish community in St. Louis, Missouri. As I said about the CM Hashas, there's nothing that even touches that. So Baruch Hashem, lots of projects. Probably doing a dozen other projects I should be
Yeah, for
mentioning.
sure.
This is slipping my mind right now. But Baruch Hashem, we're busy. Kol Ram's knocking. If you're a
Yes.
talented artist out there and you're looking for work, don't hesitate. You can reach out to me also. I can see if I can hook you up with my team. We're always looking for where the talent lies to see, people could use. We need
Oh,
to know.
you're looking for an impressionist right here.
Dude,
Hello.
if you can, if you do,
Go to my wife Washington. I want it
See?
here.
there you go. That's absolutely needed.
Perfect.
So absolutely, we're looking for the talent.
All right, we're definitely doing a part 2. Like let this episode breathe, but definitely in the near future. I love to pick your brain about these things because I'm interested in these things. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time in the near future.
My pleasure. Thank you, Uziel, for having me.
That is This interview was amazing, and I really loved our conversation. It was only the tip of the iceberg, and I only asked a few questions that I really wanted to ask him, but unfortunately, that was all the time we had. But hopefully, for part 2, we can ask and dive in all the questions I have and what you guys want to ask in the future. But for this conversation, it was so lovely, and it was so great to see a From producer knowing what he's doing and really creating content that's good quality entertainment for the From community. And I applaud Chanaya, Yirmiyahu, Kramer. Thank you very much for joining us in the previous podcast. All right, guys, this is it for today. If you would like to join us for every Thursday or another episode in general on Spotify, on YouTube, please tune in, subscribe, or follow, whatever it is, and join us every Thursday. And I love this conversation and can't wait for you guys to hear more of the conversations that I had so you guys could enjoy them. And I'll see you next time.